I know you can, in theory, bang your head on a wall until the internal bleeding kills you, but that requires a level of determination I simply do not possess. Hanging, shooting, or jumping to my death is as far as I'll go. Starving myself isn't an option either. I can't even stay on a diet for more than a month. And so I didn't sleep at all that night, so I decided to sit upright. That's how the guard found me after the morning prayer. At home I always ignored it, but here the call to prayer rang through the building and was impossible to miss. There was a Qibla on the ceiling, an arrow pointing to Mecca, but as you know, I don't partake. Well, I partake in the violence, but not the worship, and I'm not that fond of pork. You, come. I was in no mood to be flippant, and I wasn't going to be confrontational either. Generally speaking, I don't shy away from a fight, but only an idiot would antagonize a prison officer, or his cellmates. I was marched down a corridor by 2 guards. The place was a bit old, but generally clean. Think less Alcatraz, more humanities faculty of a poorly funded Greek university. Chipped paint on concrete walls, doors that had seen better days, but also cool marble floors that smelled of Dettol. I passed 2 large rooms, each with 4 cells in it that consisted of little more than vertical metal bars. Each cell housed up to 6 occupants. The bars in the first room had once been painted baby blue, the ones in the second room were gunmetal grey, and in the third room, which we entered, the theme was mint green, well, mint and brown rust. And so after a brief walk I was unceremoniously ushered into a cell with 5 other people in it. 2 walls were concrete, 2 walls were iron bars. I could see into 3 similar cells. There was threadbare carpet on the floor of every one of them, and 6 beds. 1 bed was bare as in just a steel frame. The carpets were of the flying variety, generally 2 by 1 meters, of the kind Arab merchants somehow expect tourists to shove in their suitcase when they fly home. "I guess this is me," I said, walking towards the empty bed frame. The door shut, and the guards exchanged some information in Arabic with the most senior inmate. "Good morning, gentlemen. Forgive me for not speaking Arabic. I have—" "Slip," said the man nearest the door, a tall fellow with a grey beard and deep-set eyes. He wore a grey distasha, which is standard issue in Saudi prisons. You don't have to wear them, though, so many guys around me were dressed in white or in slacks and shirts. I knew what he meant. He wanted to see what had been taken from me, and especially how much money. I had a fortune in the bank, but not much in cash. Well, I was about to leave the country. The equivalent of $90 had been recorded on the slip. I gave it to him. It seemed best to roll with any punches right now. 337 reals, said the man, more to himself than to me. Watch, cheap. Phone, Samsung. I knew for a fact that watch was anything but cheap, because of the card it came with, but the battery had probably died again and the strap wasn't much to look at. Then he looked up. What you do? I don't know yet. Yes, you know. Liquor? Bit early for me, thanks. He looked very surprised because I flinched as soon as I said it. Sorry, that just popped out. I'm a bit nervous. Didn't mean to be funny. No, nothing to do with liquor. I was detained at passport control, so... The man made a horizontal gesture with his hand, which I took to mean, shut it. I am Shawich, you know? I'm sorry, I don't. It sounded like Shawish. Shawich, head of barracks. I am the boss here. Not you, not anyone. Me. I see. You want bed? Yes, please. I assumed he meant a mattress, maybe even a pillow. 500. 5, I see, per month. Right. Well, this is my first time. I do have money, I just don't know how to get to it. Family. They can give. First week you can borrow. Make sure you get it, else... He mimed a punch, very convincingly. I see. That's okay. Sure. I haven't got any family here, but if I can make a phone call, then Phone call 200, 2 minutes. Outside country 400. You want cigarette? No, I don't. Food? Is it... Again, I don't mean to be funny, but is it provided? He shrugged. Sometimes. Your name? Carstairs. First name? First name is Reginald. I generally go by Carst. Again, the gesture. You English? Yes. You Christian? Yes. What kind? That's the first time someone asked, which implied there could be a wrong answer, but I had no idea if this guy had any particular beef with the Lutheran Synod, or the Southern Baptists, or perhaps the Pentecostal Assemblies of the world, so I just hoped for the best. Anglican, Church of England. Minister? Me? No, just layperson. He gave me a brief stare. We are Muslim. When we pray, you pray. Understand? We all pray. Okay. But not out loud. Not you. Understood. Sit down. Matters come today. Pillow, sheet. You have teeth brush? They give tomorrow. Right. Thank you. Sit down. Don't talk. So that could have been much worse. It would make for a more entertaining narrative, but I wasn't drafted into any underground prison fights. I didn't have to find the biggest bully in the yard and kill him. I wasn't jumped and raped and, I really don't watch prison dramas, but none of that happened. I was simply told the rules and given a line of credit. I suppose I could tell you about my fellow inmates. After a day or so I had learned all their names. Some didn't speak any English, some did but couldn't be bothered, and one or two were up for a chat, but in a way that made it feel as if they were merely assessing my net worth or any skills I might have that were useful around here. But what's the point, really? I just kept to myself. Whenever it was prayer time, everybody, in every cell, sat on the floor and faced Mecca. I was expected to sit behind them and to commune with my God in whatever way I deemed appropriate. I just folded my hands, closed my eyes, murmured a bit, and waited for it to be over. At the end, I'd throw in an Amen. The first time I also made the sign of the cross, but that earned me a furious stare, so I stopped doing that. So something had clearly not gone according to plan. Nothing like a few nights in prison to help put things into focus. I'd nearly forgotten I had spent the night in a cell once before, but it came back to me pretty darn quick. Oh, how I'd love to have been back in the drunk tank in that London precinct right then. I don't even remember how I got there. Oh, I know why I ended up there, all right. Drunk and disorderly conduct, yes, sir. They had to come get me off a bus shelter, as I'm told. Christ alone knows how I got up there. Sure can't do that when I'm sober. That was the night Kate banished me from her house, and, as far as I could make out, from her life. One of the worst things that ever happened to me. And I've been in a terrorist attack, amongst many other deeply disturbing things. That night, I found my way into a bar, tapped into my then still rather insignificant celebrity status, got drunk as a lord on what must have been at best 3 or 4 pints, and said some things I am not remotely proud of. I meant them, and still do, particularly where Mexico is concerned, but I'm not proud. I could have phrased it better, is what I'm saying. The rest is a blur, but I woke up in a cell, wearing an outfit provided by the Salvation Army, and immediately benefited from white privilege. Never saw a judge, never even got a fine. Someone had even found my wallet. Anyway, that seemed a lifetime ago. It was, in fact, only 2 years and change. And now I was here, detained without charges, at least no charges that I knew of. But it could very well be related to the fact they were still spooning bits of dead people out of the crater that once was Al-Hittin Mosque. Still, you'd expect a bit more fanfare. When they caught Timothy McVeigh, I highly doubt the FBI said, "Well, that's him sorted, but today is Poets' Day, so stick him in Gen Pop and let's see what he has to say come Monday." But then again, McVeigh was arrested for driving a car without license plates, and they only found out who they had caught 3 days later. The food wasn't great by any standard, but it wasn't terrible. Chicken and rice aren't my usual choice for breakfast, but I'll have it. There was milk in individual cartons with straws, 2 slices of bread, and a packet of cream cheese. A local banana. Those don't look like much, but you'll never want a Cavendish ever again. A lamb stew with onion, tea with crackers. Some prisoners even had fast food delivered. You could fill a bottle with tap water, and some meals came with tea or coffee. I wasn't all that hungry, but imagine United Airlines quadrupling their food budget in economy class, and you'll get a pretty good idea. Nobody took my food or spat in it. No, the food wasn't the issue. The smell wasn't the issue either. Arabs are generally very clean people, and not just because there's a prescribed wash before every prayer. Clearly, a room with about 28 grown men who have little to do all day is going to smell like farts and feet, but we also had air conditioning. Oh yes, not so much for us, I think, but for the guards. They kept the room at around 25 degrees Celsius, which is a little warm for my taste, but then I didn't grow up in Satan's armpit. It did mean there was some air circulating. It probably also made the prisoners less sweaty and irritated. No, my main problem was entirely sanitation-based. Each of the 3 cell groups got half an hour, twice a day, to use a washroom down the hall. That's where the showers were and some sinks. There were also toilets, but sadly they were of the squatting variety. I can't. I'm not used to it. There wasn't any toilet paper because you were supposed to rinse your bum with a small hose. That, at least, made it possible to give the footrests you were supposed to center yourself with a good rinse, but you did get a pretty good view of the hole everything disappeared in. Oh, if only it disappeared a bit more. Also, I now know that those sandals they wear must be speckled in piss and feces. No wonder they think it's disgusting to show someone your feet. They know where those have been. We had to use these squat toilets straight after another in those 30 minutes. They were out in the open too. No stalls, you were just supposed to look the other way. But I wouldn't have been able to have a go even if I'd been alone with one of those awful things in the middle of the Gobi Desert in a tent. They repulsed me. And so I didn't use the facilities for anything other than a pee and a horse bath. The others laughed whenever I shivered in the doorway, facing into the corridor. Most Westerners were like me, they said. I'd come around eventually. What goes in must come out. Well, perhaps. During my autopsy seemed like a good time to me. I just ate the chicken and rice, not the bread. If you chew hard enough, you can piss anything out, I figure. My cellmates understood I wanted to be left alone, and so they did. Not that they particularly respected my privacy, but I didn't speak Arabic. I was just a lowly Christian. Prisoners get very uppity about their faith, and Muslims sure as shit are no exception. And I think they expected me to be gone as soon as I'd paid a fine or received a few token lashes for messing about with liquor or dirty books or having a Bible on me. In fact, most of them hadn't been here all that long. I didn't sleep very well, for what I assume are obvious reasons, but generally I'd drift off around 3 a.m. and then wake up for the first prayer. That would have to do me for the day. I'd been allowed to keep my glasses, but as I had bought them mainly as a disguise, they were actually a bit too weak to read with. I need +1 1/4, and these were +0.5, so I'd be able to walk around the airport with them. My day-to-day reading glasses had been lost in the aftermath of the explosion. I did have a spare pair in my luggage, but it would be a few days until I'd be allowed to retrieve those. So during the day I couldn't read, not that there was much English reading material, and I couldn't speak with many people. One guy in an adjacent cell was so bored he tried to have a conversation with me, but Arabs are only ever looking for gossip, and after we'd established we had absolutely no mutual friends whose secrets we could rat out to each other, he lost interest. I told him I worked for Aramco, which seemed the easiest way to avoid any follow-up questions. Almost every Westerner works for Aramco, or for a supplier. They're everywhere. I made a phone call on my second day. I'd put in for one with the Chowich, but a suitable phone had to make its way to the cell block first.